Good day, class! Today, I will be sharing with you one of the most popular short stories written by the Filipino author, Carlos Bulosan. The story is entitled My Father Goes to Court. It is both humorous and thought provoking, showing us that happiness and contentment cannot be bought by wealth. When I was 4, I lived with my mother, father, brothers, and sister in a small town on the island of Luzon. Father's farm had been destroyed in 1918 by one of our sudden Philippine floods. So, several years afterwards, we all lived in the town, though we preferred living in the country. We had a next door neighbor, a very rich man, whose sons and daughters seldom came out of the house, while we, boys and girls, played and sang in the sun. His children stayed inside and kept the windows closed. His house was so tall that his children could look in the window of our house and watch us play or sleep or eat when there was any food in the house to eat. Now, this rich man's servants were always frying and cooking something good. The aroma of the food was wafted down to us from the windows of the big house. We hung about and took all the wonderful smells of the foods into our beings. Sometimes, in the morning, our whole family stood outside the windows of the rich man's house and listened to the musical sizzling of thick strips of bacon or ham. I can remember one afternoon when our neighbor's servant roasted 3 chickens. The chickens were young and tender and fat that dripped into the burning coals, gave off an enchanting odor. We watched the servants turn the beautiful birds and inhaled the spirit that drifted to us. Some days, the rich man appeared at the window and glowered down at us. He looked at us one by one, as though he were condemning us. We were all healthy because we went out in the sun and bathed in the cool water of the river that flowed from the mountains in the sea. Sometimes we wrestled with one another in the house before we went to play. We were always in the best spirits and our laughter was contagious. Other neighbors who passed by our house often stopped in our yard and joined us in laughter. As time went on, the rich man's children became thin and anemic, while we grew even more robust and full of life. Our faces were bright and rosy, but theirs were pale and sad. The rich man started to cough at night. Then he coughed day and night. His wife began coughing too. Then the children started to cough one after the other. At night, their coughing sounded like the barking of a herd of seals. We hung outside their windows and listened to them. We wondered what happened. We knew that they were not sick from the lack of nutrition, because they were still always frying something delicious to eat. One day, the rich man appeared at a window and stood there a long time. He looked at my sister, who had grown fat while laughing, then at my brothers, whose arms and legs were like the molave, which is the sturdiest tree in the Philippines. He banged the window and ran through his house, shutting all the windows. From that day on, the windows of our neighbor's house were always close. The children did not come out anymore. We could still hear the servants cooking in the kitchen, and no matter how tight the windows were shut, the aroma of the food came to us in the wind and drifted graciously into our house. One morning, a policeman from the Presidencia came to our house with a sealed paper. The rich man had filed a complaint against us. Father took me with him when he went to the town clerk and asked him what it was about. "What is it about?" The man claimed that for years you had been stealing the spirit of his wealth and food. When the day came for us to appear in court, Father brushed his old army uniform and borrowed a pair of shoes from one of my brothers. We were the first to arrive. Father sat on a chair in the center of the courtroom. Mother occupied the chair by the door. We, children, sat on a long bench by the wall. Father kept jumping from his chair and stabbing the air with his arms, as though we were defending himself before an imaginary jury. The rich man arrived. He had grown old and feeble. His face was scarred with deep lines. With him was a young lawyer. Spectator came in and almost filled in the chairs. The judge entered the room and sat on a high chair. We stood in a hurry and then sat down again. "Do you have a lawyer?" "I don't need any lawyer, Judge." "Proceed." "Do you or you do not agree that you have been stealing the spirit of the complainant's wealth and food?" "I do not." "Do you or do you not agree that while the complainant's servants cooked and fried fat legs of lamb or young chicken breasts, you and your family hung outside his windows and inhaled the heavenly spirit of the food?" "I agree." "Do you or do you not agree that while the complainant and his children grew sickly and tubercular, you and your family became strong of limb and fair in complexion?" "I agree." "How do you account for that?" "I would like to see the children of the complainant, Judge." "Bring in the children of the complainant." They came in shyly. The spectator covered their mouths with their hands. They were so amazed to see the children so thin and pale. The children walked silently to a bench and sat without looking up. They stared at the floor and moved their hands uneasily. Father could not say anything at first. He just stood by his chair and looked at them. Finally, he said, "Do you claim that we stole the spirit of your wealth and became a laughing family while yours became morose and sad?" "Yes." "Do you claim that we stole the spirit of your food by hanging outside your windows when your servants cooked it?" "Yes." He walked over to where we children were sitting on the bench and took my straw hat off my lap and began filling it with centavo pieces that he took out of his pocket. He went to Mother, who added a fistful of silver coins. My brother threw in their small change. "May I walk to the room across the hall and stay there for a few minutes, Judge?" "As you wish." "Thank you." "Are you ready?" "Proceed." The sweet tinkle of the coins carried beautifully in the courtroom. The spectators turned their faces toward the sound with wonder. Father came back and stood before the complainant. Did you hear that? Hear what? The spirit of the money when I shook this hat. Yes. Then we are paid. The rich man opened his mouth to speak and fell to the floor without a sound. The lawyer rushed to his aid. The judge pounded his gavel. Case dismissed. Then the judge whispered to my father, by the way, I had an uncle who died laughing. You like to hear my family laugh, Judge? Sure, why not? Did you hear that, children? My sister started it. The rest of us followed them soon as the spectators were laughing with us, holding their bellies and bending over the chairs. And the laughter of the judge was the loudest of all. And that is the story of My Father Goes to Court by Carlos Bulosan. See you on our next video lesson. Bye!